by that. Hopefully seeing who we have for you today. I'm so thrilled to welcome you to this thrilling true life story, and I want to introduce some of the actors who made this film possible. I want to start with a fantastic actor and a real life race car driver who's actually competed in the Le Mans. Please welcome Patrick Dempsey. Seen in Hidden Truths and Dunn. Please welcome Gabriel Leone. And the two-time SAG Award nominee for work in Big Little Lies and The Descendants. Please welcome Shailene Woodley. Seven Academy Award-winning actor, five-time SAG Award nominee, whose work includes Parallel Lives, Nine, Voltaire. Please welcome Penélope Cruz. Enzo Ferrari to such vivid life. He is, of course, a two-time Academy Award nominee, a four-time SAG Award nominee. He will win an Emmy for hosting Saturday Night Live last weekend. Please welcome Adam Driver. Walk into Starbucks, does everyone like leap to their feet? You don't go to Starbucks. You're a coffee bean guy, right?
No, what? No, that doesn't happen. I always want it to happen, but...
we'll make it happen. Flash mob.
Go to the airport, go to the bathroom.
We'll change that.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for being here. This is actually an audience of your fellow SAG-AFTRA actors. I always love to start by asking, what was your first job as an actor? You know, if you did a school play, your eyes went wide, so I got to start with Penelope, because it looks like a good story.
Well, I did a couple commercials, one for a car, one for a soap, where I had to dance because I danced for 17 years. And then I got a job as a presenter of a music show where I had to scream very loud. It's all about screaming and being very excited about all the artists that were visiting us on set every week. So I was combining that with my studies and with my dancing every night for 4 hours, but that was, actually like my first real job.
I want to go back to this car commercial because you've come full circle now with Ferrari. What car brand was it? A competitor, we'll just say.
I didn't know anything about cars then. I don't know anything about cars now. I mean, I went to the factory so many times. I saw from scratch how they do the engine, the entire process. It was the first question I asked Michael.
Yeah.
Do I have to drive any of these cars? What kind of insurance are you going to have? It is not my thing. I can appreciate it, you know, and the beauty of it, but I don't like speed. And every time I went to the factory or the museums with Michael and with Adam, it was very useful for me to see the books,
sure.
the money books that he kept, like all the records and the records kept by Enzo of the performance of every car, every second of every one of the rides. That was very interesting because it gave us so much information about their obsessiveness, you know, with things which they had in common, and she used it how she could, you know, as much as they allowed her to do that. But I think it's one of the things that they both had in common, this obsession with doing things right and the importance to detail, and it was very important to be there mainly for that reason.
Yeah, you really were Laura. You went to the factory and said, "Show me the books."
Yeah, Michael had access to everything.
That's amazing.
Because he had the blessing of the family, and we saw the books. We saw places in the factory that nobody has access to, and also the real apartment where Laura and Enzo lived, and met people that spent time with them, and it was, you know, very nothing compares, with having the time to be there in the real place with the real people. You get to do your own investigation about who they really were.
That's so cool. Shailene, for you, what was your first job, professional or otherwise?
I was 5. It was a Kellogg's commercial. And I don't remember much except the crafty. I remember I was like, oh, I like this acting thing. This is kind of fun. There's donuts and candy and yeah, I started acting when I was 5, so it was just a lot of commercials. And then I think my first movie of the week, I was girl number 3. I got to exit a bathroom stall, and it's really funny. I'm 6 or 7, I can't remember. And I remember the director, the bathroom floor was checkered, and she was like, you need to hit this mark when you come out. And they used it in the movie somehow. I exit this bathroom stall, and as I'm talking to the other actress, I'm scooting along, and then they used it in the movie. It looks ridiculous. But I think I probably did it on every take and didn't, I don't know. That was the first, I guess, real job.
I want to go back and find that. Gabriel, for you?
I was 15, I was in school, and the history teacher was a formed actor, and he asked us to produce a play about some specific period of time in Brazilian history. And my class decided to make this play about a Brazilian singer from the 80s. And I decided, I asked if they would agree for me to play. And I did it. It was one night only for our parents in our school. And there was a theater director in my school. He watched that. He was he had a theater company at that time. And he invited me to start watching the rehearsals. And
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Had you considered acting before that?
No.
Wow.
I think I only did that because I was a huge fan of the guy, of the singer. I liked his music, and I wanted to play him, and that's it. And then I entered the company, stayed there for 3 or 4 years. So I started on stage.
That is so cool. Wow. Patrick, for you?
First professional job as an actor,
Sure.
performer. I actually had I used to do birthday parties. I had juggling routine. No, this was to subsidize my ski racing. So on the weekends, I put together a half hour to 45 minutes, a little routine where I was juggling, unicycle, ventriloquism, tumbling, whatever I could do. That's how I got started.
Can you still
Natural
juggle?
progression to be in Hollywood after that.
Can you still juggle?
Yes, I can. I went to Cleveland, Ohio in 1982.
Woo!
For the jugglers, are people from Cleveland here?
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
For the jugglers competition, I placed second. So, yeah, no, thank you very much. The winner was Anthony Gatto, who happens to be the best juggler in the world. He was 7 at the time, I was 12. And he could do multiples, which is what everybody was really into at the jugglers convention. It's more than 3 balls in the air. He did 11 rings. He was a prodigy, no question about that, but I was happy to hang in there and get on the podium with him. And here I am today talking to all of you after.
Can you still do ventriloquism?
No, not at all. I probably should pick that up now. That'd be helpful.
Put it on the special skills.
Yeah.
Right next to juggling. Adam, for you?
Paid job was a show called The Unusuals. That was the first
sure.
time I ever got paid to act.
With great cast. Jeremy Renner was in that,
Yeah.
and Harold Perrineau, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just one day, Amber Tamblyn was who I acted with. I was right out of school, and that was one of my first jobs.
Oh, wow. That's great. I actually love that show. I was thinking about it the other day. Again, congratulations on a fantastic movie. I went into this knowing nothing about cars or racing, and was so happy to find out it wasn't a racing movie. It was, about these beautiful relationships at its core, and I'm curious what appealed to each of you about the project. I mean, Adam, what did you know or think you knew about Enzo Ferrari prior to coming to this role?
I didn't know anything about it. I met Michael a year or maybe a year and a half earlier about something else that he was trying to get together, and then just kind of out of the blue he sent me this, and then I read it immediately and thought that I was wrong for it. Because I didn't understand, I didn't have an idea at all about how, I could read it and acknowledge that it was well written and I could see the character, I just couldn't find a connection. But then how Michael was talking about it as someone who has the mentality of a racer, someone who is has prolonged myopic focus. And then we went racing here in California and in Modena. And when we started shooting, we took some of the chassis, or one of the chassis of the cars on like an abandoned airstrip. And I totally understood what he was talking about of having to be completely, absolutely present and in the moment and being aware of the environment and what the car is doing and what you're doing. And that kind of was the mindset of the character going forward, as someone who was calm on the surface and had an engine, constantly running underneath, and was at the same time aware of his image that he was projecting, and so in a way playing a part of Enzo Ferrari. And when he was in the mausoleum with his son, or when he's with Lina, it's his most vulnerable and most at ease. And with Laura, it's they have such a shared grief that is that they haven't addressed, and it's become very business. And you get a hint of who they used to be when they have sex, but or just you see the fire, but their foreplay at this point is negotiation. So eventually, and just because Michael is famously well researched, and shooting in the place itself. And Piero was a massive help, and in opening the doors, as Penelope was saying, to the apartment. The place where the crash is in the movie is actually where the crash was. Wow. The barbershop that we shoot it in is actually the barbershop that Enzo will go to. The guy who's cutting my hair is the grandson of the guy who cut. He's the cars that some of them are originals that Michael. A couple of them are that he had 9 mics attached to them. Their sole purpose was to be shipped to the location to be recorded for sound, and he would drive them through a tunnel. Just being there, 17 hours sometimes because of all the prosthetics, 18 hours, sometimes 20 hours a day, a couple times. Just by osmosis, you start to build a bridge to, the person, and then it just kind of happens naturally.
See, I'm surprised to hear that there were prosthetics, because when I saw a photo of Enzo Ferrari, you do look like him. I think.
Okay.
And Michael thought so too. No, I'm telling you. It's not up for debate. You look like him.
No, when he was younger.
Yes, considerably younger.
Just to clarify. No, Michael had a very really strong direction with the prosthetics, and sometimes he looks at prosthetics and acknowledges that they're impressive and they're beautiful to look at, but sometimes it separates you from the actor, and he really wanted them to be subtle so you connect with the person immediately with the actor. All of Michael's notes are about internal life and character, which is why I love his film so much. This could easily have been a movie that's just a weak plot as an excuse to watch really beautiful cars race really fast. Yeah. Like he is character, with all of his movies, it's character first. All of the choices are in support of that. And the spectacle, of course, he has moments of pure cinema that it's just really moving images, but it's all in obviously following an idea that if they crash, you don't care about them, then you're not as invested, which is obvious, but it's hard to find movies that follow that principle.
I mean, nothing takes me out quicker than a bad prosthetic or a bad wig, so I just have to ask what prosthetics were there, because they're invisible to the eye.
He had a neck prosthetic and obviously a skull cap, and then a hairpiece, a wig. This guy, Alexis Continente, who
I'm
have
glad
many
I'm
wigs.
Because you say obviously, and I'm like, I had no idea that was a wig.
Yeah. I did another one with Alexis. We did White Noise, and I had a wig, and no one understood it. He's very good. And this guy, Scott Wheeler, who also I just worked with on White Noise, did the prosthetics for this.
Wow.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Penelope, Laura is such a complicated figure here, and can you talk about finding her passion, but also her pain and even the humor in these scenes? I think you really represent a woman so many people can relate to.
Yeah, well, the more I found out about who she was, because it's easier to find information, material about Enzo, but about Laura there was very little. So the more I researched, the more I talked to people in Modena, people that knew her, the more it became like a personal thing for me to need to give her a voice, because I didn't think it was fair. The things that were remembered about her, and were very far from the reality. I would go talk to strangers in the street and ask them, "Did you know Laura Ferrari? Did you know in the neighborhood?" And most of them would say, like, try to dismiss her and say she was just a crazy lady, very complicated, and everyone was scared of her. I would ask them, but why? She lost a son when she was out of an illness when he was 20. Yeah, no, but she was crazy. And I feel the same thing was happening to Michael, but we were not putting that into words. Mm-hmm. But we were both feeling there is so much more about this woman that we have to give her a voice. We have to tell her story, because it's true what you said. Unfortunately, she represents the reality of so many women around the world, everywhere. I think also in our industry, like, this fantasy of equality is like far away from being something real, and we all know. And we just have to keep all doing what we can to get to a place that is more fair someday. But right now it's just an illusion. But there are so many extremes, and she was one. And it's not just about that period in that place. Even today, in so many places around the world, women living in the shadow of men and being invalidated constantly and not acknowledged and not valued. And the company Ferrari, she always felt it was also her own, because they started together from nothing. And she actually was one of the first investors, and also nobody knew this about her. She had one object that they got from the wedding, something that it was hers, and she sold it and put that money in the company. That was not a lot, but they had nothing. And I think Enzo always knew that a few times that were crucial for the continuation of the company, she was there and behaved in a way that was, okay, this is also my own, this is our project together. And all of that was like erased from history. And also the lack of respect for, no, she was not just crazy. What is crazy? Things are not so black and white. We are all so much more complicated than that. She was a survivor of one of the worst things that can happen to a human being, and also in the middle of a broken relationship with lies, that with lots of pain everywhere, and lots of loneliness and not an appreciation. So every day of her life was about surviving and making it through the day. And one of the things that kept her going was this thing that she felt for the company, for what they had together. And one of the things, maybe the thing that kept them, made them speak the same language, was that devotion and love for the company. So I was very honored and grateful to Michael that he chose me to give a voice to somebody that didn't have any.
Mm-hmm. No, it's yeah. The movie's called Ferrari, but I really love the women in this movie. And Lina is someone that I knew nothing about. I don't know if it was more challenging for you because, you can look up photos of these people. We know their stories. How did you go about preparing to play someone who was, purposely sort of in the shadows?
The great thing about working with Michael is he does so much preparation before the movie before prep even begins, that I remember the first Zoom I had with him, he talked for almost an hour about Lina, and it was all information that he had gathered by talking to people in Modena throughout the years, and Piero about his mom. So that was the starting place to understand who this woman was. And you're right, there's really nothing about her. There's a couple photos, and the photos are very revealing because you see Enzo relaxed at their house together, and it's the only time that you see him, and his suspenders are out and his shirt's unbuttoned, and he's laying down and outside on the grass. And but for me, it really was being there and speaking to her niece, speaking to Piero, and it was a really touching and moving experience to talk to this man who is in his late 70s and to walk in and go, "I'm gonna play your mom, and can you tell me about her?" And he didn't really have much to say, but that was what told me and informed me everything about their relationship, because he could barely talk. There was so much emotion when we brought her up. And I think, seeing this man who's had the life that he's had in his late 70s tear up about the woman that protected him and kept him feeling safe and comforted in the midst of a lot of chaos, was really the basis of how I understood why this woman was in such deep service to Enzo and to Piero. And everyone who knew Lina said the same thing, which was that early on when she met Enzo, she made a choice. And the choice was that she was going to be devoted to him no matter what, and she would not complain. And I kept trying to find some person who was like, when did she bitch about this or moan about that? And they were like, it just never happened. She made that choice, and she decided to be very strong and fierce and in her resiliency and in her dedication to Piero and his relationship with his father and this man that she loved so much. And I thought that was such I've never really seen that depicted in the way that it is in this film. And I think there's something really powerful about watching someone make a choice for themselves that is in service and can be interpreted as someone who's been left behind or is ignored or isn't cared for. But the truth was they did have such a deep connection. And she always knew what her role was in the dynamic. And she never, I think probably deep down she wanted more, but she knew that wasn't going to be something. And so she decided to I use the word in service because that's what Michael and I spoke so much about with Lina. Yeah. Is that there was a service to her softness and her ability to show up no matter what was happening for herself.
Gabriel, you're obviously well known for your work in Brazilian cinema and TV, but I think this is your first American film. Is that correct?
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So, what did it mean for you to get to work with this cast and crew, Michael Mann, right out of the gate?
For me, it was an honor to have my first experience shooting our Brazil with Michael and with this cast and with our crew. And the first time I was acting in English also. And I have a special story with Michael. One of the first big experience I had with movies was when my father watched Last of the Mohicans with me. I mean, I was pretty young. I was 10 probably. I don't know why my father did that. Because the movie is brutal.
Yes.
I spent days not sleeping after the movie, of course. But still, I have already told Michael about this, of course. But still, that movie really got stuck into my head. And through the years, I kept watching that movie, and that soundtrack became my favorite soundtrack of all time. And of course, Daniel's work on the movie and Michael's work on the movie. And when we were shooting in Modena, it was the first time my father went to Europe, and he went there to Modena, went to the set one day, watched Michael directing me.
Wow.
And at the end of the set, I asked Michael if I could introduce him to my father, and I did that. Michael was absolutely kind with him, and I was there just looking my dad and Michael trying to talk because my dad doesn't speak good English, so I was kind of translating. And I asked if I could take a picture of them. Michael said yes, but I want you to be on the picture, and I want this picture. So he asked his assistant to take the picture too. And I mean, for me, it was a full circle. So, of course, the experience of living in Modena for 4 months, living in Italy. My background family is from Italy. It was amazing. The movie was amazing. The experience was amazing. My character was a big, I don't know, was so good. The whole process. I learned so much from Michael, from Adam, from all the guys, and we had a great prep on the real track with the stunt drivers. So now I know Patrick is a professional, but I think I can say I know how to drive a racing car, just a little bit.
Did Michael ever apologize for traumatizing you as a 10-year-old?
Actually, he gave me the job because of that. It's kind of
Smart. You mentioned Patrick's experience racing, and I honestly had no idea before this movie. I mean, you're not just a racer. You own Dempsey Racing. You've placed in events like the Le Mans. Have you been tracking this project for a long time? Because I know it has a long history.
Yeah, stalking Michael for about 15 years. The first time I ran into him, we were at MGM, and it was for the Mille Miglia. They were doing a version here in America, and I was like, "There's Michael Mann." Of course, I knew he was a pretty fanatical when it came to cars and Ferraris in particular. So I went up and had an opportunity to talk to him. And I had heard about the movie, so I'd asked him then, and that was about 15 years ago, where the movie was at. And then I called my agent the next day to get a copy of it. I read it, and I was very familiar with Ken Brock's book, which is a lot of this is inspired by. So I knew the story, and I was amazed at where he wanted to start the story. Because there's so much going on in Ferrari's life. Where do you begin this? But I think this moment, right after the death of their son, is such an interesting moment to come into this. And I think the spring team, or 1955 through 61, really dramatic period in motorsport racing, very romantic, very dangerous. A lot was evolving, and also Ferrari was struggling to really keep the doors open. And I could never forget the script. And I was racing at the time. And people would always go, "Well, you gonna make a movie like Le Mans? Are you gonna do something like that?" And I could never get Michael's story out of my head. It was just so. It was good because when you make a racing movie, it's like, okay, what happens when the driver gets out of the car? What's the drama? We know there's going to be a dynamic happening on the track. What's the human dynamic? And I remember when we did the first reading of this together. Some of us were in the room, and a lot of people were on Zoom. And I remember just listening to it. I couldn't get over to Italy because of COVID and all of those restrictions. And I kept thinking about it. I could feel the emotion of the script. And I think that's what makes it so special to me, is he captures the racing beautifully, and the detail and the authenticity, but he also captures the humanity from different perspectives. And these are characters you'd love to spend more time with and to go and get to know them even more. I think with your character in particular was a rock star, sort of the James Dean of motorsport at the time. A lot of these guys were coming, and women too, many actually female racers at that time, were coming from aristocracy, and they would lose their lives, and that would be the end of that lineage would be over. And the same for you. And I think Von Tripp was a German driver who in 61, 62 died tragically at Monada. So we got into all that discussion at this event, and then I just couldn't stop thinking about the script. And then a year ago, I think right before shooting, I was working with your hair gentleman doing wigs on. So yeah, and I was like, I hear the movie's going. He said, "Is that true?" And I think the next day, the Formula One race, the first race this season started, and I sent an email to Michael, and he responded immediately. And I'm like, "Can I come in and have a meeting and sit down and talk to you? I mean, I'll do anything in this film. I'll be a PA. I just want to be a part of the experience within reason." But so, I did do a little bit of that on this, but it was great. I just was so happy to be a part of the movie and to be able to contribute. And he goes, "Yeah, I want you to play Piero Taruffi because you're old." And I'm like, "Perfect." My hair's almost there. So we went through the dyeing process. I didn't have a wig, so they blew up my hair and burned it up and everything. And so that's how it all started. So for me, it's been a dream job. Number one, just to be in Michael's orbit. I mean, we talk a lot about his depth of research. I mean, he's had this project for 30 years. So he would show you rooms where he had books and images and little things that were personal to the drivers and to the Ferrari family. It was just so infectious that it was like you're sitting with a professor, and it's a master class in filmmaking and storytelling. And in his kindness, I mean, it's a little intimidating if you ask him something because he can't hear. So he'll yell at you publicly. So I had to kind of get over my fear to ask questions because, did anybody else feel like that? So I never asked him for an adjustment, and I was scared. The only time I'd suggest something if it was a technical thing, and then we'd get lost in that rabbit hole for a bit because he knew so much about it, and then he'd come out. So it was a dream job for me to be on stage. Well, to be sharing this experience with all of you was really quite special. And we were there in Modena, and we had a chance to eat the food, the people, the warmth, and really immerse yourself in the culture. And once again, it's about the heart and humanity, which is what I love about the movie.
For prep, did the three of you go racing together?
Oh, I wouldn't get out of the car. And you got really quick from never driving a stick before to driving a stick.
Exactly.
And a really good driver. So a lot of potential there. And also, you should talk about the movie you're doing right now, too. He's playing Senna. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. So, yeah, so he's just finishing that up. And, great driving ability.
Now this is my thing.
Yeah.
Getting racing drivers that dies tragically.
Well, you got a lot
If
of...
anyone has a project with another racing driver that dies, I know how to do it.
Adam, what about for you? Did you get behind the wheel?
In pre-production, we raced contemporary Ferraris in Modena and some single-wheel open wheel single-seaters and like the little Rebels and some Mazda Miatas in California. In California. But then once we started, no, then I couldn't go around the car. But I did race one of the chassis that they didn't put the skin on yet. I want to say it was the 801, but you become very painfully aware of how important a roll cage is and seat belts and cars that have a little bit of room. I feel Patrick can correct me, but at the time it was kind of more ideal to be thrown from the car than to be stuck in it, burning.
Really?
And it's not because of being absent-minded that they didn't have seatbelts. It just wasn't part of the culture at the time.
It was the fear of the fire. So what would happen is the material that they were working with and where the tanks were, there new. Now we have a cell that will protect you if the thing is ruptured. But then it was really fire. They'd get trapped under the car. And they were losing drivers almost every weekend, 2 or 3 drivers every weekend. So that's how dangerous it was. And it was a Caterham chassis that they ended up building the cars with. It was the same family, I think 4th generation family that built all of the replicas that were subsequently, I think, crushed after we finished shooting.
They were crushed purposefully?
Yeah, I guess.
You can have a replica Ferrari in the real world.
But you kept one, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Shailene, I wanted to go back to what you were saying about the young actor who plays Piero and your scenes with him and with Adam. They're so wonderful, and I always think it's strange to throw people together and say, pretend you've been a family your entire life.
It is strange.
Yes. Did that chemistry develop pretty naturally? The young actor is wonderful, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, it felt. I had some friends in town before we started filming, and they had a child that was his age, and so he came over and spent some time with him. And I mean, it was weird. He came. I was like, "Oh, let's have a play date so we can kind of all get to know each other." And they just sat on the iPad for 6 hours. I can't relate to anything that's happening right now. I was like, "Do you want to play? Do you want to I don't know, do something exciting?" And they were like, "No." But he was. I mean, he was very professional. He was kind of this old man in this little body, and it's a hard thing to be a child actor. I know it from experience, but you're in this adult world, and you're working with people who you're told are very important, and he's speaking a language that's not his native language, and he hung really well. And in moments when he would get tired, Adam, you were so good with him. He would improvise and make him laugh and make him and kind of help him find truth and authenticity in a moment, so he wasn't just repeating lines. And it was kind of an easy process as far as working with child actors go.
Yeah, no, I like working with kids because they don't have any preconceived idea what they should or should not be doing, and they're very unpredictable, and you really don't know if they're going to stay. You get really into catering, as you were saying.
We did lose him a few times. You'd be like, where'd he go?
Where's our kid? But they are like anybody else on a set in a way where it's kind of your job to make sure that your scene partners feel comfortable, because only when they're comfortable will they give you the good good stuff. And even if it's a kid, you just have to it's good to come down to their level and not try to bring them up to where they're not adults, they're kids. So and the more at ease they are, then the more playful they are, and then it's all easier. And that's with anybody. Is what Michael is good at is trying to analyze where someone's insecure or what their strengths are and make them feel comfortable to get the best for the scene.
He's so good. You mentioned he's being told these people are important. Do you think did he know your work? Was there any intimidation, you think, between the two of you?
Oh, I don't know. I didn't ask it. He didn't seem very intimidating. I tried to intimidate him.
Did you?
Just stare him down. But no, I don't remember. I don't remember at all.
I think he was more intimidated by the fact that he was speaking English with a bunch of people who spoke English, and we had a wonderful camera operator who was Italian, and so he would communicate with him and kind of volley with him and make him laugh and make him feel more at ease in his native language, which I think was very helpful to Giuseppe. That's the name of the actor. But I don't know if it was intimidation because he was so young. I don't think he'd seen films, but there was a sense when I first met him, like he was very kind of buttoned up and professional, and my goal was to just kind of make him feel as comfortable, like Adam said, as possible, because it's important. It's so important on a film set for kids.
I wanted to touch on this movie. It's about so many things, and Penelope, particularly with Laura, she's going through this really unspeakable grief and tragedy. Is it ever a hard place to be as an actor, playing those scenes? And I don't know if you're the kind of person who takes your work home with you, but
I try not to take it home at night. Since I'm a mother, I try to separate more both worlds. I had time in my teenager years and in my 20s and 30s to try to suffer as much as possible. that always the performance was going to be better if I torture myself a little more. Then you realize that it's not really about that's another fake trick and a trap, like many others that we used when we are lost, which can happen many times every day. But I think the thing that helped me the most to stop forcing that was becoming a mother.
Mm-hmm.
Then, okay, this is gonna stay here, and then I go and even those hours in the day, I'll try to separate things, but of course that's not gonna happen all the way. But to create a little boundary, I think at the end of the day you also can make your work better, because you can go in and out of that dance of fiction and reality as many times as possible in one day or even in 1 hour. I realized after so many years that way of working is better for me. It also allows me to go to jump deeper when I'm there and be there 100%. It helps me be more present and also be more present in my life. But I don't know why I'm telling you this.
Yes, I asked. In fairness, I asked.
Did you ask me?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. No, I'm just curious because your body doesn't know the difference when you're putting trauma.
But you were asking if I had a fear to go to those places when a character is suffering like that. And I feel that would be very selfish of me if I had that fear. First of all, I think we all, as actors, we all look for material that is challenging and difficult, that is not playing ourselves, and the more scary it is, the more happy we will be during the process, because we know we will learn more. So at the end of the day, we are eternal students, and it's about that. But I never think about myself of, how is that going to affect me, because most of the times those characters in a drama like this, or many of the characters that I've played in the last few years, they have such a tough, hard reality that I wouldn't give that to myself. It's like, no, I'm gonna try to go there as much as I can, because one amazing thing that has our profession is that it can really make your level of compassion grow more and more every day if you really are able to put a big part of yourself into that other reality and go there. You have the safety net of knowing that is not your reality, but you cannot put an extra safety of, what if this hurts me? No, maybe it has to hurt you. Maybe you have to realize, a part of you on a cellular level has to realize what life would be from that place, what life would be for that person. And that's why I'm attracted to those characters, because I think it just is like living many lives, obviously with the luxury of knowing that is a fiction, but I mean, we all go through things. Nobody is safe from that. But I feel it's the biggest gift that the profession can give us, to be able to look at life and look at the world from so many different points of view, and you're forced to forget about yourself and really really try to understand what life is for so many people. And for Laura, of course, it's like she goes through some of the most horrible things that somebody can go through. And your fear cannot be there. It has to be to try to give as much truth as you can, into any one of those situations, as much as you can every day.
Absolutely. Yeah. This movie is in theaters on Christmas Day, I believe. What a lovely present. Please spread the word. It is such a special film. If you can all stay seated so they can get out of here, I want to thank you for being a great audience. Thank you so much.